What is up, everyone, and welcome to another live edition of the Border City Kids podcast. I'm your host, Brian, and this is a Sunday special that I'm doing today on a podcast that I've actually already covered, but this is more of an information session. If you're interested in older hurricanes today, this one would fall in the category for you. So welcome. Please comment if you'd like to suggest a hurricane or natural disaster that you want me to cover in the future episodes. I will gladly cover that for you. What I would also like you to do, share the show with someone you know. That would be great. I love getting people on here that are interested in this kind of stuff, natural disasters. Things are always happening. We just saw Hurricane Melissa, which was a huge hurricane that just battered Jamaica and then kind of just took off. But it was quite devastating because of storm surge. So welcome to the show. We are going to get started in about 30 seconds. So welcome to the Sunday special of the Border City Kids Live. We are covering Hurricane Andrew from 1992, the hurricane beast from the 90s. Welcome to the show, Samuel. Alrighty. So let's get started on today's podcast. So before we dive into this episode today, there are 5 categories of hurricanes that we're going to jump into on the Saffir-Simpson hurricane wind scale. So there's 5 categories of official hurricane categories. Obviously, there's a tropical depression, tropical storm, where the hurricane goes through the process of rapid intensification. But for this purpose here, we're going to go into the different categories of the actual hurricanes, and this is called the Saffir-Simpson hurricane wind scale. So when we're looking at a category 1 hurricane, your wind speeds are from 74 to 95 miles per hour. The winds are very dangerous and they will produce some damage. So everything's pretty much based on wind speed and damage. For a category 2 hurricane, you're looking at wind speeds from 96 to 110 miles per hour, extremely dangerous winds, and this causes extensive damage. And we see this more and more as we get higher and higher in our categories of hurricanes. The storms probably dumping much more rain, heavier storm surges, the wind speed increases, and like I said, the damage is just a lot more. As we get to categories 3, 4, and 5, I will just jump into category 5 right now because this one is going to apply to Hurricane Andrew today. The wind speed has to reach 157 miles per hour or higher, and the damage has to be catastrophic. And we see this a number of times with our hurricanes becoming a little bit stronger with warming ocean temperatures in the Gulf of Mexico and the Atlantic Ocean. The hurricanes go through the process of rapid intensification. So, like I said, welcome to the show. And here we go. So this is just a satellite shot of what Hurricane Andrew looked like. Obviously, you can see the well-defined eye. This is as it was approaching Florida. And Hurricane Andrew actually made 2 landfalls in the United States. So it actually crossed through the lower portion of Florida and then went west and then kind of went up towards like Louisiana. So I'll just go into the next one here. This I feel like is an important slide, and I just want to read this quote because it definitely applies to what's happened since this major hurricane has crossed through. It led to major changes in forecasting and development and being prepared and informing people of leaving, not sticking around for something like this. So just the quote itself says, "We have come a long way in advancing hurricane forecasts since 1992, which was 33 years ago. Sustained investments in research, modeling, satellites, aircraft observations, and forecaster innovation have led to a 75% improvement in hurricane track forecasts." And we saw this, and I'll point this one out very recently with Hurricane Melissa, as Hurricane Melissa was forecasted to kind of hang around Jamaica, just southeast of it, and just hang around. And as it was able to just hang around in one spot in warm waters, it rapidly intensified and became a category 5. And the track that they predicted, that the National Weather Service actually, the Hurricane Center, predicted, was spot on with exactly where it went. So our forecasting has become way better now that we have better technology to use. People can be alerted. We can give them almost like a week in advance of being pretty accurate on where hurricanes are going to go. Okay, and this is just another shot of these satellite images, giving 3 different dates showing the speed of this one, because over 2 days it crossed through Florida and went up through, it looks like to be Louisiana or Mississippi. So the warm waters of the Gulf kind of strengthened the hurricane as it crossed through Florida again, and it went up. So just leave that up there. So let's look at the origin of the path of Hurricane Andrew. So this storm itself began over the Atlantic Ocean, thousands of miles from the United States. On August 14th, 1992, a tropical wave, which is a low pressure system that moves westward through the tropics, often becoming the seed for hurricanes. This one in particular moved off the west coast of Africa, and this tropical wave moved west, and it struggled to organize at first, as some do with wind shear, which kind of like is your upper and lower level winds that kind of mess with the storm and kind of try and prevent it from forming or becoming organized. So that's what we saw here with wind shear. And the wind shear can tear apart a storm structure and prevents it from growing stronger. On August 16th, 1992, the system gained enough rotation and storm activity to be classified as a tropical depression. Specifically, Tropical Depression 3 is what this one became. So usually they're just given a number, and then as they become more official into tropical storms, they're given an actual official name. The tropical depression is the first official stage of cyclone development, with maximum winds under 39 miles per hour, or if you're in Canada like I am, 63 kilometers per hour. The next day, Tropical Storm Andrew, meaning its winds had increased between 39 and 73 miles per hour, was forming, and it was gaining strength, and it's going through that process of rapid intensification again. So if we look at it here, we can see it's a tropical storm, and it's heading through the Atlantic, and it's slowly drifting towards Florida. But this storm actually struggled to organize. A few days later, Andrew almost collapsed. Strong upper level winds, and we're talking about wind shear again, nearly tore the storm apart. So it really broke it up, and it was struggling, and it was not strengthening at all. And the National Hurricane Center thought this storm, Hurricane Andrew, would actually never recover from that stage. The conditions, unfortunately, changed. The subtropical ridge, which is a massive area of high pressure that often steers storms westward, strengthened over the Atlantic Ocean. This helped reduce the wind shear, and Andrew was able to organize and really build that structure to become a strong hurricane. And we've seen this recently. The warmer ocean waters also made this the fuel that it needs for a hurricane to develop. And once the sea surface temperatures climb above about 26.5 Celsius, which is right around 80 degrees Fahrenheit, the ocean begins providing heat energy that hurricanes need to thrive, and that's exactly what happened here. Between August 22nd and August 23rd, I'm just going to bring this back here because we're getting close to that timeline. Andrew underwent what meteorologists called rapid intensification, where it really just jumps from being a tropical storm all the way into a high category hurricane. So in this case, Hurricane Andrew went from a weak unorganized storm into a category 5 hurricane, which is the highest level on the Saffir-Simpson hurricane wind scale. And this is what we're looking at here. Catastrophic damage occurs, 157 mile per hour or higher winds. Now, the only problem is this was 33 years ago, so your forecasting models, your cone of the cone that they make that shows where the actual hurricane's going to go, they're uncertain at this point. They still don't know. A lot of hurricanes like to go up the east coast of Canada and the US. Some do all sorts of twists and turns, but they were very uncertain about this one here. So let me just get this up here. So by August 23rd, Andrew was a small and incredibly powerful hurricane with maximum sustained winds of 165 miles per hour and a central pressure of 922 millibars. For context, the average sea level pressure is around 1,013 millibars. So this is extremely low pressure, and it shows how intense Andrew had become. So the lower the pressure, the stronger the hurricane. And this one here was well below the average or the norm central pressure of what it should be. Early on August 24th, 1992, around 4:30 a.m., Hurricane Andrew made landfall in southern Miami-Dade County, which is in Florida, just east of the city of Homestead. Landfall just means the point where the center of the hurricane's eye reaches the coastline. So it's usually very calm in the center or the eye of the hurricane. It's a very weird feeling. I've never witnessed anything like this, but I always hear the stories that when you're in the center of the hurricane, it's kind of like an eerie, creepy feeling because you can actually, it clears up because there's nothing going on in the middle. But you also know there's still another half of the storm to go, which is the frightening part, especially when you've already seen the first half cause so much catastrophic destruction. The storm's eye was about 20 miles wide and passed directly over Homestead and Cutler Ridge. And I just want to show, this is some of the damage that we're looking at when it comes to Hurricane Andrew. And it's totally devastating. This is something way more powerful than a tornado, and usually hurricanes spawn tornadoes, but you can just see the amount of concentrated wind and storm surge that was in this storm here, which allowed it to grow and cause all the damage. And here's just another picture, totally flat. And these pictures are going to be a little bit more rare to find because it was 33 years ago. We don't have the technology like we do now, but you can just see just total devastation, and this takes years and years to clean up. I'm going to leave it on that picture because I think this picture is significant when people are calling for help on the roofs of their homes. Andrew's destructive winds leveled neighborhoods. Even concrete and steel structures were severely damaged. Mobile homes and wood frame houses were simply disintegrated into nothing. When we're looking at the storm surge, this is the rise in sea level caused by the winds that forces all of the water to come to shore. And the storm surge down in Miami-Dade County reached as high as 17 feet. So, and I think I've mentioned this in a few of my episodes, like just think about the room that you're probably standing in right now and think about the water level being higher than the ceiling most likely that you're at. So 17 feet high. If you were right on the coast, you would not stick around for this because you would drown. And that's the unfortunate part of most hurricanes, right along the coastlines. Storm surge goes miles and miles inland, and that's the most deadly part of these storms. After crossing the southern tip of Florida, Andrew began to move into the Gulf Coast of Mexico, and I'm just going to bring this up here to show the Gulf Coast of Mexico. So we're going to head into the Gulf here after the 24th of August, and it re-strengthened. It maintained and strengthened its high speed and velocity. After moving through the Gulf, Hurricane Andrew made a second landfall on August 26, 1992, near Morgan City, which is in Louisiana. Although slightly weaker, this hurricane was still Category 3, and when we looked at the severity of levels, like even Category 1 would cause significant damage. Category 3 is a very strong storm with winds at 115 miles per hour. If you're a Canadian, it's 185 kilometers an hour, which still packed a very serious punch. So this was not a small hurricane to say, oh, I'll just stick around for. This was still a very deadly thing. So the thing that also makes these hurricanes dangerous is the heavy rain, the flooding, and the strong winds that damage all of the homes, downed trees and power lines, and this happened throughout Louisiana and Mississippi. Andrew also spawned at least 33 tornadoes, which are rotating columns of air that form inside the thunderstorms, and we see these on the outer bands of hurricanes because that's where the most velocity is of the spin of the hurricane, which causes that rotation to occur. They add even more destruction to what already is a super destructive storm, and this happened particularly in Louisiana and Alabama. Hurricane Andrew was compact but catastrophically powerful. Let's look at some of the actual stats from South Florida. Over 25,000 homes were completely destroyed. So if you just have a look at that, over 25,000 homes completely destroyed. Over 40,000 suffered major damage. About 180 people were left homeless, and 1.4 million people lost electricity, and this lasted for a little bit longer than a month in some places. Homestead Air Force Base was wiped nearly off the map. 90% of its buildings were actually destroyed, totally gone. So Homestead Air Force Base took quite the hit. Andrew caused an estimated $27 billion in damage, and this was back in 1992, so you can probably do the math and figure out that it's going to be significantly higher if it was today. The guesses would be that it's nearly doubled, so around $55 billion. 65 people lost their lives, and 26 directly from this storm, which means wind, storm surge, or collapsing structures, and that's the sad part. And 39 were indirectly from post-storm injuries, cleanup accidents, or generator-related carbon monoxide poisoning. So there was a few other things going on during the cleanup process that caused some of these fatalities. Let's go into, I think this is a pretty powerful storm, or a powerful picture right here. In Louisiana, Andrew caused around $1.5 billion in damage, and this was because of the homes that were destroyed. Oil facilities and offshore platforms were disrupted, reducing U.S. energy output for weeks. The days following Andrew were chaotic and desperate, with phone lines down, radio stations destroyed, and roads totally blocked. Communication and rescue operations were extremely difficult to do because they needed to have a way to get into these cities that were affected and towns that were affected where roads are totally blocked off. At first, the federal assistance was slow to arrive. FEMA, also known as Federal Emergency Management Agency, that's the U.S. agency responsible for the Coordinated Disaster Relief Program. They faced heavy criticism for its slow process, but I feel like this happens through most of these storms because it's kind of hard to expect FEMA to get into these cities when things are blocked off and it's total war zone by the looks of it. So it's kind of hard to get in there and help. This led to major reforms. After Andrew, FEMA was restructured to focus more on preparedness, quick response, and coordination with local and state governments and officials. The U.S. military played a vital role in recovery. More than 20,000 troops from the Army, Air Force, and National Guard were deployed to distribute food, water, and medical care to the people that were heavily impacted. They helped maintain order. They rebuilt shelters and restored communication lines, so they were able to get things going and people back on their feet. The lessons learned from this response reshaped the American emergency management, and this disaster exposed weaknesses in how the country handled large-scale crises, which later influenced how FEMA and other agencies operated during future events like Hurricane Katrina, Irma, and Harvey. Rebuilding after Andrew, and I'm going to go through a couple slides here just to show you what it was like. And remember, this is 33 years ago, so this would be the Sun Sentinel newspaper. Just looking at the devastation on the front of the paper. People totally heartbroken over their homes being gone, the damage, destruction, and nothing left. Everything they had is gone. This might be the only humorous picture that I was able to find. A woman in the bathtub with the water totally filled, and it looks like she has a drink in her hand of some sort, but I thought that was kind of funny to try and bring some light on the situation to make it a little bit more uplifting, I guess. So here's a picture of some of the FEMA volunteers and disaster teams that were put together to help. So you can see some shelters set up with food, water, medical care, all that kind of stuff was brought in to help out the people. Okay, just another picture of the Federal State Disaster Application Center. So this is where people were actually putting in their applications to get help. And this is an interesting picture here because if you look at the pink display out front, you can actually see it says home repair training. So for people that were unable to wait to get things fixed, it looks like they were setting up home repair systems and whatnot to kind of educate and help people on how to fix up their homes. Okay, just more pictures, and this is the Metro-Dade police, so I assume this is around Miami-Dade, and this is people handing out food, probably helping kids out that have lost just about everything, and hopefully not their families, but it's super sad to see. Okay, and I'm going to leave this up there because this shows the destruction and just a couple stats. Okay, so rebuilding took many years. One of the biggest outcomes was the creation of new building codes, and that's looking at making your buildings stronger, more wind resistant, more water resistant, so that people can actually come back to something as opposed to having their house totally destroyed. And the Florida Building Code was first established in 1994, which led to stronger roofs, impact-resistant windows, and better anchoring system for homes so they don't get blown away. These stricter standards have proven incredibly effective, and we've seen this time and time again, that a lot of buildings are able to keep their shape and they're more likely to be able to build on after the storm's gone through. Many newer homes built under these codes survived later storms with far less damage, which is incredible. Insurance companies also changed how they operate. Andrew's damage claims caused 11 insurers to go bankrupt because of the amount of money that they needed to cover. This led to the creation of Citizens Property Insurance Corporation, which was a state-run insurer that insures people living in high-risk areas can still get the coverage they need, because let's face it, if you're living in a very hurricane-prone area, you're more likely to get declined on your request for insurance because you know that your house is most likely to get hit by something anytime. Every year there's always a roll of the dice. In terms of weather science, Hurricane Andrew advanced the study of rapid intensification, hurricane structure, and forecast accuracy, which is huge to give people a heads up on the direction of storms. The National Hurricane Center improved its tracking and public communication systems, including the use of the cone of uncertainty. And that's what I was talking about. It's like a future cone, and it usually predicts, it's like a cone shaped of the track of the hurricane will usually stay within a certain boundary. It's not totally perfect, but your odds of staying in what's called the cone of uncertainty gives you a good idea of where a hurricane is most likely to go. In the broader picture, Andrew marked a shift in how Americans think about hurricanes, not just as weather events, but as major social and economic challenges as well. This includes preparation, infrastructure planning, and long-term resilience. And when we look at resilience too, we're not talking all about, like, it is mostly about getting money to get your life back together. But we also see resilience in these storms with communities and neighbors helping neighbors and trying to get medical care and food and shelter to everyone that was affected. So it's good to see a lot of people come together. And we usually see that happen with multiple natural disasters, not just hurricanes. When we look back on Andrew, we remember more than just the statistics. We remember the human stories. Let's go back, because this really kind of settles in. It hits your emotional side of you can feel what he's going through. Families huddled in hallways and closets as the walls shook around them. Parents were shielding their children as glass shattered and roofs were ripped away. Entire communities disappeared overnight, and that's seen throughout the pictures here. And I think this is a good one to show. So if you lived in these areas, unfortunately, you had nothing left the next morning. Andrew revealed how fragile we are in the face of nature, but also how we can be strong in the aftermath. The people of South Florida rebuilt, adapted, and came back stronger. Their experience led to better science, stronger buildings, and a deeper understanding of how to prepare for storms for the future. Even today, when forecasters track new Category 4 or 5 hurricanes, Andrew is the benchmark, and this is the storm against which all other storms are measured. And I remember growing up, I know I was very young when this storm happened, but I remember around the year 2000, everything was still compared to Hurricane Andrew. So I'm going to go into some of the statistics. I don't know if I'm going to cover every single one of them, but I think it's a good idea to just go over the main stats and facts about Hurricane Andrew. So Hurricane Andrew was formed in the Atlantic Ocean. That was where it got its strength, and that's where it got its structure from. This was in the 1992 hurricane season, and this storm was active from August 16th until August 28th in 1992. The peak intensity occurred at August 23rd and 24th of 1992. So I'll leave that up just for a visual. You can see this is when it was its strongest point. The storm type, it was a major Category 5 hurricane on the Saffir-Simpson hurricane wind scale. The origin, so this formed as a tropical wave off the west coast of Africa on August 14th, 1992, and became a tropical depression on August 16th, 1992. On August 17th, it was upgraded to a tropical storm and upgraded to a hurricane on August 22nd. This became a Category 5 from August 23rd through the 24th. The storm dissipated August 28th, 1992 over the eastern United States, and when it goes on to land, that's when you usually see the breakup of storms because the hurricane itself is not being fed anymore. It's just running its course and kind of dissipates through there. The peak category of this storm was a 5. The maximum sustained winds was 165 miles per hour. That was verified at its peak intensity. The gusts were up to 175 to 177 miles per hour, and its minimum central pressure was 922 millibars, which is very, very low. The eye of the Hurricane Andrew was 20 to 25 miles wide, and its speed was around 17 miles per hour. The hurricane force winds extended outward about 25 to 30 miles. So you can see from the outer bands of the storm, you can still feel the winds 30 miles away. So it was a very big storm. And the tropical storm force, that was just for hurricane winds. The tropical storm force winds were felt 90 to 100 miles away, which is pretty crazy. That's pretty far away. The Florida landfall occurred August 24th, 1992 at 4:35 a.m. and this was in Elliott Key, Miami-Dade County. The winds at landfall when it first reached was 165 miles per hour with 175 mile per hour wind gusts. The amount that fell was 7 to 9 inches. When Hurricane Andrew re-strengthened and went back into the Gulf of Mexico, it made landfall August 26, 1992 at 3:30 a.m. and this was near Morgan City, Louisiana. This made landfall at a Category 3. So the maximum winds were sustained at 115 miles per hour with wind gusts from 125 to 130 miles per hour. The storm surge in Louisiana was 8 to 10 feet, which is still very deadly because if you think about how tall you are, I guarantee you're not taller than the storm surge that went through. And 7 to 10 inches of rain fell. The total amount of tornadoes spawned from this hurricane was at least 33. 33 was confirmed, but there's usually more, maybe that just were temporarily down on the ground and then kind of just dissipated. The most tornado activity was felt in southern Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. The total damage in US dollars was $27.3 billion, and when it's adjusted for inflation today, we're looking at $55 to $60 billion. The amount of homes damaged, over 124,000. Vehicles destroyed, over 25,000. Boats destroyed, 5,000 to 8,000. Buildings destroyed, over 90,000 residential and commercial structures. And for the power outages, 1.4 million. There were 65 total deaths. Direct fatalities from the storm itself as it occurred was 26th. And the indirect, which I went over earlier, was from accidents, fires, and carbon monoxide poisoning, was 39. Florida had 44 deaths, Louisiana had 8, Bahamas had 3, and others aren't stated. The Homestead Air Force Base was 90% destroyed. Let's have a look at this here. So if you want to just have a look at the most intense hurricanes throughout history, the Florida Keys 1935 hurricane was at 892 millibars. Andrew was the 5th most intense. So let's see. The schools, over 80 public schools were damaged in Miami-Dade County. Homestead Hospital was also severely impacted. For wildlife, over 90% of trees at the zoo in Miami were lost, and over 400 animals were killed or escaped, which is super sad to see. The affected areas overall by Hurricane Andrew was the Bahamas, South Florida, the Gulf of Mexico, Louisiana, and Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia, with tornadoes, flooding, and wind damage. People displaced who lost their homes and everything were 250,000 people. FEMA deployed over 15,000 workers, and the National Guard and U.S. military deployed over 20,000 troops. The later Category 5 U.S. landfalls after Andrew, so I believe there was quite a a wait time between Category 5 hurricanes actually making landfall. And the next one was Hurricane Michael in 2018. So we're looking at 26 years between Category 5s hitting land. I won't go through the whole track again. I think that's been covered. This is one of the most compact Category 5 hurricanes ever recorded. Prompted major improvements in the national hurricane forecasting and communication systems and led to radar improvements, satellite technology improvements, and better wind measurement systems. This spurred Florida's post-Andrew building code, which meant that homes were going to be built much stronger, and they have among the strictest in the United States. So, this has been a crazy storm to go through. I'm sure if you're able to, if you live through this, I'd appreciate if you left a comment explaining your experience if you were around, or even if you're around for any hurricanes, just to go through your experience. Here, I just want to show you a quick table of the most deadliest hurricanes in the United States. And we see Hurricane Ian from 3 years ago was very deadly. Direct deaths were 21. Andrew was 15. I'm not sure about the confirmation of these numbers, but that just tells you that the destructive force, because we see a lot of dates in the 2000s, but Hurricane Andrew is holding its own from 1992. This here just shows the intensity of Hurricane Andrew over the dates in August from the 17th all the way to the 29th. So if you have enjoyed this episode, this information session on Hurricane Andrew, please check out the podcast that I've actually got on my YouTube page. Go to www.youtube.com/@thebordercitykids. And if you check out the Florida flattened thumbnail there, click that. It will go into more detail, and it's more of like a storytelling type video on this hurricane. But you can just see that the damage and whatnot, this one is one that stands out forever. So, thank you for joining me on this information session. Please subscribe, hit the like button, and share this show, please, with people you know, because this is always informative, even for people who always feel like they can live out hurricanes, tornadoes. You have to take cover, you have to get inland, and you have to get away from the storm surge and the wind and the rainfall, because these are the perfect ingredients that lead to deaths. So, if you want to explore this even further, like I said, please go to When Nature Strikes on my channel and check out the Hurricane Andrew episode on my YouTube channel. I'll also be going live a few times a week to cover more hurricanes and tornadoes and other events that have occurred, just as information sessions if you're interested. And I usually do that every Thursday night, and maybe once in a while I'll cover them on Sundays. And like I said, I cover different types of natural disasters. I'm Brian, and this has been When Nature Strikes. Stay safe, stay informed, and always respect the power of the storm. Thanks for stopping by. Have a good one. And before I sign off, congratulations to the LA Dodgers. What a baseball game that was last night. I can't believe that was the comeback. They actually completed that. I think Toronto actually deserved to win that. They played better. Their hitting was better. But home runs apparently is all you need. Well, have a good week, everyone. Take care. Bye.